Hello and welcome to Access Asia. I'm Yuka Royer. Coming up in this show. 10 years since Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 disappeared over the Indian Ocean, families of the missing are still waiting for answers about the fate of their loved ones. Narendra Modi visits Indian-administered Kashmir for the first time since removing its semi-autonomous status. We have a special report on how civilians are receiving government-backed military training and arms to defend their villages. And Taylor Swift has attracted fans from all over Southeast Asia to her concerts in Singapore, drawing anger from some of the city-state's neighbours. A decade ago, a Boeing 777 with 239 people on board disappeared without a trace en route from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing. Goodnight Malaysian 370 was the last radio call from the pilot, and no distress call was ever made in what became one of aviation's biggest mysteries. Families are still searching for closure, but there's hope of a renewed search in the near future. Jean-Emille, Jamine and Olivia Salazar-Winspear bring us this report.
It's been 10 years since Grace Nathan's mother disappeared, and Daisy was one of 239 people who boarded the doomed Malaysia Airlines MH370 flight.
In the last 10 years, I would say that many things have changed in my personal life, but at the same time, many things have stood still in terms of MH370.
On March 8, 2014, the plane departed from Kuala Lumpur, set for its destination, Beijing. But it vanished suddenly from radar screens mid-flight. There was no distress call, no evidence of bad weather, nor technical complications before the plane took off. What followed was the largest multi-governmental search in aviation history, as investigators covered an area in the Indian Ocean about the size of North Korea, and at a cost of $130 million. Satellite data showed the plane had deviated from its original flight path, but just a few fragments of the Boeing 777 aircraft were ever found. A decade on, and Grace is just one of hundreds yet to find closure.
I believe my son is still on the flight, that he's still around, or he is living on a remote island like Robinson Crusoe. That's what I've always believed.
One day, there'll be someone will come forward and tell us what's really going on, the truth.
Several theories have since emerged surrounding the plane's disappearance. Some have pinned the blame on pilot Zahari Ahmad Shah. A 2018 report suggested failures by air traffic control and that the flight path was changed manually. Richard Godfrey, an aerospace engineer investigating the lost plane, even accused the Malaysian government of a cover-up, but no concrete conclusions have emerged. Jaquita Gonzalez, whose husband was a member of the cabin crew, said the only way to resolve their grief was to find MH370.
Don't let it remain a mystery. Then only we can put the puzzle pieces together and find out what happened. It can happen again.
Ahead of this 10-year anniversary, Malaysia's Prime Minister offered families some solace, saying the case might be reopened if compelling evidence emerged.
It is an issue of affecting lives of people, and whatever need to be done must be done.
In the interim, Malaysia's Transport Ministry has confirmed a meeting with private US-based marine exploration firm Ocean Infinity to potentially resume the search. The same company carried out an unsuccessful exploration in 2018, but family members still see the news as a source of renewed hope.
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited Srinagar, his first trip to Indian-administered Kashmir since revoking the disputed region's semi-autonomous status in 2019. Announcing a raft of development projects in a football stadium, Modi said the region had prospered over the past 5 years. The event, seen as part of an election campaign ahead of national polls in April and May. Tensions have intensified in the Muslim-majority Himalayan region, where separatists have waged a rebellion for decades. More than 24 attacks on Hindus have been reported since 2019. On top of deploying 700,000 soldiers in the region, the government has been training and arming civilian vigilante groups there. Our reporter Navodita Kumari went to meet some of them.
On the foothills of the Himalayas, this group is training to protect themselves against any armed attacks. For safety reasons, they have requested that we hide their identity.
Over there, the militant was walking.
This village has been attacked at least 5 times in the past 4 decades. The Muslim-majority region of Jammu and Kashmir, an area claimed both by India and Pakistan, has been a hotbed of separatist movements for years. To combat the violent rebellion, the government has formed a local militia called the Village Defence Committee. These men are training to kill any infiltrators coming from across the border with Pakistan, which is just over 100 kilometers from here. They are not a part of the Indian military. They are villagers armed by the government, and this drill is a demonstration for us.
I'm using a gun for my own safety and the safety of my kids, because I feel threatened by militants. That's why I've got this gun.
Over 4,000 civilians were trained under the program by the Indian Army to work as vigilantes on the top of their jobs. Jammu and Kashmir has reported a spike in targeted attacks on Hindus since New Delhi dissolved its semi-autonomous status in 2019. Since then, official data say around 24 Hindus have been killed by suspected militants. In January 2023, 7 Hindus were killed in Dangri village. Saroj Bala lost 4 family members, including both her sons.
They fired at least 20 bullets on my eldest son. They shot my youngest son with 4 bullets. There were also some injuries, including my nephew. They also shot at me with at least 10 to 12 bullets.
Following these killings, the government has started retraining the militia group. Estimates say there are over 700,000 troops deployed in Jammu and Kashmir, making it one of the most militarized places in the world. For security analysts, arming civilians cannot be the solution.
No, it is not justified to arm any civilian. It is government's responsibility to ensure the security of the civilians. This is bad and wrong. It shows government's incapacity, incapability to deal with the threats on its own.
Hindu nationalist Prime Minister Narendra Modi has been aiming to strengthen his reach in Jammu and Kashmir, which has been living in conflict since India's partition with Pakistan in 1947.
Now, Taylor Swift is wrapping up the Asian leg of her Eras tour. After 4 days in Tokyo, the American singer-songwriter did all her remaining concerts in Singapore, and that's ruffling some feathers in the region. France 24's Shona Bhattacharya joins me on set to tell us more. Hi, Shona.
Hi, Yuka.
So, tell us, what does Taylor Mania look like in Singapore?
Well, really like it does, everywhere else. Everywhere that she goes, the 34-year-old has become a worldwide phenomenon, with fans, some of whom are known as Swifties, sometimes traveling considerable distances to see her in concert. For those of us who are not Taylor Swift's target audience, it's hard to understand how much power of attraction she holds over her fans. Everything she does, everything she says, and even especially in the realm of politics, can have outsized consequences.
And these concerts are taking place in Singapore. Why is that?
So the Singaporean government signed an exclusivity contract with Taylor Swift and her team for her to perform 6 shows in the city-state and nowhere else in Southeast Asia. And that's where things get dicey, because normally a so-called radius clause will concern a city or a region within a country, but not within a region as a whole. And last month, Thailand's prime minister said publicly that Singapore had paid Taylor Swift up to $3 million per show, which Singapore denied, without saying what the real figure was. And then a lawmaker in the Philippines, meanwhile, said that that exclusivity clause is hurting other countries in the region. Here's how Singapore's prime minister responded to those accusations.
There was a certain incentives provided to her from our Tourism Development Fund. It really is a post-COVID fund to revive tourism after COVID. And a deal was reached. And if that's what's needed to be done to get an outcome which is mutually beneficial and which, from Singapore's point of view, serves not just to grow the economy, but also to bring in visitors and goodwill from all over the region, I don't see why not.
So that was Singapore's Prime Minister speaking earlier. So this was an economic decision then?
Well, primarily, yes. I mean, of those 300,000 tickets that were sold to attend these 6 shows, 70% of them were sold to people from outside Singapore. That means flying in, staying at a hotel or Airbnb, eating out at restaurants, and for the duration of the trip, and maybe even doing some sightseeing. Take a look.
Aside from it's my first time here in Singapore, I just really very excited for everything. And then aside from this concert, I get to see the beauty of Singapore at the same time. So everything is worth it coming here.
It took a lot of my money, about 30,000 yuan, and the ticket take me 2,000 yuan. Yeah, but I'm willing to do it.
So Yuka, if we do the math, that's about 32,000 yuan in total, so almost $4,500. That's a pretty penny for a concert. And all that adds up with an expected windfall of about $370 million for Singapore. Of course, there's also an element of soft power here, with Singapore on display as a safe cultural hub capable of pulling off a series of high-profile concerts over just a few days by one of the biggest stars on the planet.
Wow, exciting times really for Singapore and other fans in the region. Well, Shona, thank you very much for that. Tributes have been pouring in for Akira Toriyama, the creator of Dragon Ball, who has died of a blood clot in the brain at the age of 68. Toriyama, better known to fans by his famous self-portrait, was widely regarded as a giant in Japan's comic book and anime culture, with a career spanning over 45 years. His Dr. Slump series was a huge hit, followed by the Dragon Ball saga, which has sold 260 million copies to date. His company says that he had several works, quote, in the middle of creation with great enthusiasm, and would have had many more things to achieve. That's all for this edition of Access Asia. Do stay tuned if you can. There's more world news coming up.